Gentlemen.
Right. First and foremost, congrats on an amazing event. What did
Thank
you
you.
think of that main event specifically, and how would you rank that against?
I mean, right now I think it's probably the number one fight of the year, right? I mean, these two not only came out, threw down, took everyone, both took each other's best shots, and just kept coming. So, I mean, that's the kind of main event you want to see. And with Clay, he's been with us for a couple of years now, and he's been knocking at the door to go to the championship. So congrats to him. But Shane, I mean, both are true warriors, and so much skill, so much heart, so much grit, and it was just amazing.
Absolutely, and obviously Shane has been the poster boy for the majority, if not the whole season. You guys gave him the chances. What do you think he needs to do moving forward?
I mean, listen, Shane took everything that Clay brought, just as Clay did, but just like Clay said, that everybody came here to watch him. I mean, I thought I was the best line, and me knowing him from the past few seasons, that's the kind of Clay that you always kind of expect. If you're going to fight Clay, that's the kind of fight you're going to have to fight. You not only you got to, match his energy, his output, his stamina. I mean, that's a lot to deal with. And listen, credit to Shane also. I mean, Shane was there the whole time. You know what I mean? He was behind in the fight, but he was there the whole time.
And last one for me. We saw Mustafa and Abdullah both get wins today. Do you foresee the PFL bringing in more fighters from Saudi Arabia or just that region in general, given that also we have the Ngannou and Tyson Fury event happening in Saudi Arabia?
Yeah, exactly. That's, both of those guys had their first outings with us. Both won by finish, I think. I know Al-Qatani definitely finished. But again, tonight they showed up, they did their thing, and yes, to answer your question, yeah, absolutely. We're still signing more Saudi Arabian fighters, and whether they live there or anywhere else in the world, we're looking for you guys.
Ray, so I'm just curious, what did you think of the showcase fights overall?
I thought everybody looked great. There's not one fight. Well, there was a fight I was a bit disappointed with, but outside of that, all the showcase fights were good fights.
Now, as a promoter, with Carlos Little missing weight, how frustrating is that for you?
It was frustrating. Frustrating because, and that's the fight I'm talking about. Frustrating because, number one, he missed weight, and then he turned up to the weigh-ins. I was there. He walked in like everything was fine. He had an hour left to cut, and that's what disappointed me the most. It was like, okay, everybody has, not only cut weight to make weight, but the fact that he could just walk in there, and I don't know what was going on. But then he turned up tonight and he fought like it was a wrestling match. I mean, all he did was just hold Sadabu up on the cage. Didn't try to take him down. Didn't try to advance anything, knowing he was already down a point. And that's, to me, is absolutely, I mean, I don't know if I can say it, but it pisses me off.
Now, last one for me. With Shane's kicking game in the main event, I'm just curious. In your day back in K1, you faced massive leg kickers.
Right.
Who was the hardest kicker you had to face?
Wow. I mean, Ernesto Hoosh was probably the most precise kicker, but Peter Edge was one of the hardest kickers, I think. But when you're heavyweight and you're over 200 pounds, everybody kicks hard. But I think Peter Edge probably the hardest kicker in that time that I fought against. And I fought everybody. I don't know. You name one, and I'll tell you, yeah.
Great. Obviously, you have Sadabu and both of them being returned into the championship this year.
Right.
Talk to me about the progression we've seen, especially with Sadabu. He's been with the company since the very beginning.
Right.
And his involvement. Can you express your thoughts on that?
Yeah, like he said so himself, he had to make that transition from Sweden to Las Vegas, and we saw what happened last year. Went through the whole the division, won the playoffs, get to the championship, wins the championship. He's at the championship again. again, like he says in his interviews, is that he wants to continue to be champion, and he's chasing another 5 titles. So, which means he's here for another 5 years. You know what I mean? So that's a good goal to have. And Olivier, honestly, I think he came into his own last year. We saw him. I was impressed with the fight when he fought Shane. In the first round of that match, I thought he outstruck Shane in that first round. But again, we keep seeing, and then his next fight, he knocks the guy out with a knee. Again, like I said, Olivier is improving also with his game, with his striking. We all know he can wrestle, but I think his striking is probably the part that he's been working a lot on, and he looked amazing.
Ray, you mentioned the weight miss situation. Are you comfortable with the rules the way they are now, with the penalties that you have in place? Is that something that you're still looking to tweak with the point deduction in the tournament, or are you satisfied with where you guys are at on that?
I think I'm good with where it's at, and who knows? Like I said from the very beginning, it's going to take us 5 to 6, maybe even 7 years to get everything solid, because we've made a few changes. But this change, so the original rules were if you miss weight, you're out, which means the alternate steps in. But we changed it because the guy that earned the spot to get to the playoffs, we felt like, okay, he still needs to be in the playoffs, but he's going to lose a point. So I'm good with it at the moment, and I'm pretty sure I'm going to be good with it moving forward. But again, there are you just never know. Something might happen and it might change something. But right now, I'm good with it.
You got a high free agent signing with Savannah this week. I'm curious, her and Clarissa, they faced off. Is that the fight that you make right away with them two, or do you lead them to each other down the path? Have you made that decision yet?
I mean, right now, listen, they're great boxers, but I think they both are going to need some wrestling training, jiu-jitsu training, that kind of thing. And we'll see. We'll see how that matches up. We may find them, newcomers also, and we'll see what happens. But as it stands right now, Clarissa's already said that she's going to beat her. But that's time down the line somewhere, because they both still need to get into training. And as you know, you've been in the game a long time. It takes a while to learn how to wrestle, defend a takedown, and go back to Sutherland. He had to make that change to move to Vegas to be able to, his wrestling's on point now.
Yeah. One last thing for me. Can you expand on PFLW, what that is exactly? We've seen that branding, but is that just classifying the women's division, or is there potential events that are PFLW, like a subsection?
Oh, yeah. Well, it just stands for women's division. Yeah.
What's up, Ray? Right over here. Last week we were trying to get it out of you where the championships were going to be. We were trying to pry it out of you, but today it was announced Washington, D.C.
I was going to tell you guys. I meant today.
Why Washington, D.C.? Are you excited to go to Washington, D.C.? Are you expecting a good crowd?
Yes. I've already sat down and kind of put some matches up together. We all know the 6 matchups for the championship. There's a few other good matchups that's going to be in, support of the championship. But, DC, we were there in the WSOF days, and so the time prevented itself, and I think it's, it worked out, everything worked out that we could go there and put on a good show.
Julia Budd seemed to want to fight Kayla Harrison at the PFL Championships. Is there any possibility of that?
Yeah, there is a possibility. But there's, I got to sit down with the team and see, but, there's a couple of names floating, and we'll make that decision hopefully by early next week.
And last thing for me, Fiaggio, he was in here, of course, after that win. He said that usually you come up to him after the fight and you say, what took you so long? But you didn't say that this time. You guys had a little bit of a lengthy conversation. You didn't seem to remember what you said to him. Can you tell us?
Yeah, I felt like he got away from his jab, and then he was overreaching with his punches. He's still young and still learning, but he's also in that spot where he feels like he's got to impress everybody by really just hammering away the big punch and knocking the guy out. But so when you get to that point, you really got to start honing things down and making sure everything is nice and tidy, because as you climb the ladder, if you look at the championship, the main event tonight, both of those guys can box. None of them actually really overthrew anything. You know what I mean? So Clay Biagio just needs to go back to the fundamentals, sticking to the basics, and work from there.
Andrew, 2 questions, Ray. Speaking of Ali Walsh fight, what did you think the stoppage? Did you think it was an early stoppage, or was that because of the amateur rules with the fight?
No, I thought the guy was hurt. The referees jumped in, but then I felt like he was a little bit hesitant because the guy also kind of got up, and it was almost like he was in two minds. He wasn't really sure whether to let it go or not. So the first question I asked when I jumped in the cage was, "Is the fight over?" He says yes, and so being a referee is tough, but I thought the stoppage was okay. Yeah.
And one of the big elephants in the room is all these rumors on social media about PFL buying out Bellator, or working with Bellator. I don't even know what it is. Is there anything that you can say about that?
Don't believe rumors.
You talked about enjoying most of the fights tonight. I was curious, was there one singular performance that stood out to you the most?
The whole night?
Yeah.
Did you not see the last fight?
There's that answer. I'm curious what you thought of Alexis Bergani in that featured showcase spot. Really showed a well-rounded game plan.
Right. Yeah, no. I think this is Alexis' 3rd fight with us now. And again, he's another young prospect that continues to improve, continues to climb that ladder. But he did great. He showed his striking, he showed his ground game. Yeah, no, he looked good.
Moving forward, Olivier Mercier, could we see an event in Montreal, Quebec, Canada?
That's a good question. That's, again, PFL there's so many things in the works. And of course, now that we're seeing over 150 to 160 countries around the world, for us it's if we can get around the world and have the regular season here, the playoffs there, like kind of traveling the world, that would be whew. John's coming along too, he said.
Right here, I got 3 questions for you. The first question, ever since Shane Burgos was signed to the PFL, everyone's been calling for his fight with Clay Collard. Now that it happened tonight, and it delivered probably the fight of the year in all of martial arts, how is it to end the semifinals with something?
I 100% agree with you, sir. I thought it was ridiculously amazing. Again, the guys came out, did their thing. Not only showed grit, showed heart, showed skills, and they just kept going at each other. So, yeah, right now that's going to be hard to beat for the fight of the year.
Okay, and then I also want to touch on the weight miss topic. So you had Liao that missed weight last week. You had a couple fights fall through with cancellation. So down the line, because you guys only have 10 events per year, what do you think is the best way to solve that issue with people dropping out because of weight misses?
Well, Liao didn't fall out. Even though he missed weight, he lost a point.
More so last week, we had a couple cancellations.
Oh, yes. So the heavyweight fight was, he was another guy, like I said about Carlos Leal. He's a heavyweight that missed by 8 to 10 pounds. But he walked into the weigh-ins like he was going for a stroll on a Sunday stroll, which is absolutely ridiculous. It just tells me he's not disciplined. And, of course, he was so much heavier than his opponent that his opponent's coaches were wanting him to weigh in at a certain weight. I think it was like 285 they requested. I had asked because we had changed that bout, I had asked them, and he wasn't willing to do anything to save that bout when he was the one that actually created that mess. And so, put it this way, he will no longer fight for me. Put it that way.
Okay, and then last question, Ray. Someone that really caught my attention tonight was Abdullah Al-Qahtani. So he potentially could be the face of the Saudi Arabian market. And what do you see his future holds? Because he's 7-1 featherweight.
Right.
Could you maybe see him in the tournament next year?
No, I think the tournament, well, for PFL MENA, yes. I think we'll see him in there. Yeah, no, he's coming along really well. Like, again, another guy that needs a little bit more fights to kind of compete at the highest level. But yeah, he will be in PFL MENA. And so far, I'm impressed with what he's done. His last fight was, I want to say, 3-4 months ago, and he won by finish, and he looked great. So yeah, tonight, again, he displayed that. He's still a young fighter in his career, I mean. But yeah, I think more experience, and he'll get there.
Last one right here in the front.
Hey, Rick. So there were a lot of people complaining about the circumstances to which Shane Burgos got into the playoffs. What would you say to those people after they had to watch this fight?
I understand why, but at the same time, they also need to find out and learn and understand that the rules are the rules, right? I mean, you have to be blind not to see what happened, right? Those guys they came out, they didn't fight. And it just, we all know how those two fight. They come to fight, right? And it ended up being a grappling match because they didn't want to hit each other, which then it cost them in the rules. It cost them a suspension and out of the playoffs. And you know, there's a few other things to that as well, but that's for them to tell, right? That's not for me to tell. But the fact of the matter is, the rules are the rules, and when you sign a contract to come and compete, you got to compete at the highest level. You got to fight to win, and those two just were doing a grappling match.
So you guys have ventured into Europe, ventured into Africa, and you guys also have now the best African fighter in MMA, the best Canadian fighter probably in MMA on your roster. Are there any other countries you're looking to venture towards?
Every country in the world.
Love to hear it. Thank you, Brad.
All right, thank you as well.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate you.